Technology partners are the unsung growth heroes. This is Partner-Led Growth, a show dedicated to empowering partners to discover the solutions their clients need while growing their ability to take their own revenue to the next level. Your host, Ben Spector, a passionate member of the MSP community for over a decade, will help you navigate the growing partner ecosystem. Partner-Led Growth is sponsored by Zomentum, the revenue platform transforming the partner sales ecosystem, one solution, one vendor, one partner at a time.
Hello and welcome to Partner-Led Growth, the podcast. I'm your host, Ben Spector. Today's guest is an exceptional entrepreneur who's also a current MSP, more on that later. He's an expert in all things ransomware and disaster recovery. He's the owner of Watchpoint IT and the CEO of CryptoStopper. It's Greg Edwards. Greg, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
So look, getting straight into it, obviously you're a cybersecurity expert. And so I want to spend most of our time today talking about things that our technology partners and MSPs can learn from. So the biggest thing I'm thinking right now, we hear a lot of buzzwords in the industry, but what is the biggest problem facing MSPs? And for clarity, that's your managed service providers who are wanting to transition to being MSSPs, your managed security service providers. So what is the biggest problem facing the MSPs trying to gain that second S?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is getting the right tools and getting the existing techs trained up on those tools. So I mean, two primary problems. Number one would be having the right employees, right techs to be able to handle it, because that's everybody's problem. But I mean, that's just a global problem that we'll ignore that. So you got to have the people, but then you got to have the right tools and train the staff on those tools. And these tools, there's so much noise in the industry right now around XDR and EDR and point products and all of the things that you need to build to have layered security. So figuring out what that right stack is and then training the staff on that stack, I think that's the number one problem, because we have some exceptional tools available now, but if the configuration isn't right and the employees don't know how to use them, then it doesn't matter. So the biggest problem that I see that MSPs have to make that transition to the MSSP space, which I think every MSP in the next few years, I mean, they have to make that transition. I mean, you have to be providing security and layered security to your clients to continue to be in business. So every MSP has to make that transition. It's getting the tools right and getting the training to the techs right.
I think focusing on the tools is a really interesting one, because people are fundamentally expensive. And I haven't tried hiring any cybersecurity experts for a while, but last I looked, you were looking probably $200,000 salaries for proper cybersecurity experts, and for our UK audience, that's kind of £150,000, which for a small MSP dealing with small clients, it's a lot. It's a lot of money, and unless you can really price your services exceptionally high, you're going to struggle to cover those kind of costs. So I think that the tools is really the place that we need to focus more. Now, you mentioned a couple of acronyms there. The MSPs love acronyms. You've listed off XDR and EDR, for example. Like, when I first started out as an MSP, well, it was probably started out as a break-fix IT support provider before we even became an MSP. We had AV, traditional antivirus. And then that's evolved over time to your EDR, MDR, XDR solutions. For those of us who perhaps don't know exactly what they stand for, could you outline the differences there and how those products have evolved over time?
Absolutely. So started with EDR, so that transition from traditional antivirus then to EDR, which is endpoint detection and response. And the company really that pioneered that is a company called Carbon Black that has now been purchased by VMware. But Carbon Black really started out as a forensic investigation tool. So back in the early 2000s, when there would be a breach, you would bring in Carbon Black to do a forensic investigation. And essentially what it would do is collect all the forensic evidence of what was happening. Well, that really made sense to take all of that information, and rather than wait until after a breach to figure out if you were having a breach, why not determine that in real time? And so that's what EDR became. So endpoint detection and response, essentially recording everything that's happening at the endpoint servers and correlating that and then running it against IOCs. I'll just keep throwing out acronyms like everybody knows, right?
Whenever you're using acronyms, as long as you define what they are, I'm really happy for you to do it.
So an IOC is an indicator of compromise. And what the original endpoint detection and response would do is match all of that forensic information up against the indicators of compromise to say, okay, you have a bad actor on the network. And now you have all of the data to go back and figure out exactly what happened and remediate that breach or potential breach. So that was EDR. That transitioned to MDR, which is managed detection and response. So really nothing major there other than the security operations center behind the EDR tool to actually manage it, which as an MSP, I still think today, unless you have hundreds of employees, I wouldn't even attempt to go build your own security operations center, SOC, another acronym to throw out there. Yep. So MDR is just managed detection and response. And then the next iteration of that is XDR. So XDR is extended detection and response. And so now that's adding components like SIMS, which is a security information and event management system. So collecting all the data from firewalls, from your Office 365 or Google Workplace, all of your servers, all of your syslogs, pulling that all into one place, and then having that XDR, the extended detection and response system, correlating all of that data, pulling it all together, and then looking at indicators of compromise against all of that data. The next phase is adding automated response to that. So traditionally, it's all been, you get alerts on all of this, and then a security operations center person has to go act on it. Well, now tying in automated isolation so that when a compromise is imminent, you can lock down that workstation and cut it off so that then you can determine whether there's automated remediation or you need to get a tech on it to go remediate.
So when we start to introduce the automated remediation, are we still within the XDR bracket, or have we now added like an A to the beginning of it, AXDR or something?
Yeah, I don't know that there's an acronym yet for that component. Maybe call it AI XDR.
So is it perhaps fair to say that a lot of the XDR solutions on the market at the moment may not yet have the automated component that we're
absolutely. Most of them do not. So, and that's where CryptoStopper. So CryptoStopper really just focuses on ransomware exclusively, and I would call CryptoStopper an RDR, a ransomware detection and response system that is automated. So CryptoStopper will automatically detect a active ransomware event happening and then automatically remediate and stop that event.
I want to know a bit more about how these things actually work. My understanding, if we look back to traditional AV, it was based on known signatures for the file. So if you downloaded from the internet an executable, for example, and it was known to be malicious, your traditional antivirus would be able to recognize that and quarantine or wipe the file. Whereas the more modern EDR onwards solutions are looking towards the intent of the file and perhaps the processes that are going to be involved. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that actually works?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right on the AV, signature based, and then it really takes that first, first person that gets hit, or first few thousand people that get hit before it then is really functional. So with EDR, MDR, XDR, it is really looking at that behavior of what's happening. So it's not even necessarily looking at a file. So you think about a malicious file that antivirus would traditionally pick up and detect. Well, now that malicious intent can come from PowerShell or VB script, or just a user going to a malicious website within their browser, and antivirus is not good at picking up and detecting that, what we call live off the land type of attack, where it's just leveraging existing tools that are already on the Windows or Mac environment. And so where EDR really shines is taking all of the processes that are running, the files that are being accessed, the network connections that are being made, and then correlating that to say, okay, this is malicious intent, even though there may not be a malicious file at all involved. And then being able to recognize, alert, and stop that. And that's really what the detection and response needs to get to the point. We're just in the middle of this transition from that traditional AV to now having these XDR tools that will function in a way that's quick enough to stop the damage. And again, that's exactly where CryptoStopper comes in from the ransomware standpoint. So we focus specifically just on recognizing that active ransomware attack happening and killing it. And then layer onto that what XDR can do, and being able to stop data breaches and stop that connection of those attackers coming in.
Sure. So I'm probably going to show my ignorance, as per getting very good at that. Last year we heard a lot about Canary Files. Where do they come into play, and is that a part of a modern ransomware solution, or am I looking too far back into the past here?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, and that's something that we were pioneering with CryptoStopper, was the use of those Canary Files to really, what the Canary Files do is help to speed the time to detection, because your typical users are not interacting with those Canary Files. So you think about what is normal behavior on a given network, and the users are interacting with files, making connections to the internet, using cloud SaaS services. And if you can introduce, really the broader term for Canary Files is deception technology. So the attacker that's coming in, they're not the normal user, right? So they don't know what is being normally accessed, so they'll access everything. And then that's where Canary Files and deception technology, when added to automated detection and response systems, can the fidelity is increased.
Yeah. Then kind of moving on, we talk a lot about the automation bit of it, the automated detection and response. What is an automated detection? And well, I guess we've covered what the automated detection is, but what is an automated response?
Yeah, so I'll give, and I don't want to just try to promote CryptoStopper here, but it's the easiest example for me to give of how the automated ransomware detection and response works with CryptoStopper. So we have Canary Files that are precisely scattered throughout the network to be able to increase our again, fidelity, for lack of a better word, to be able to make that determination through our algorithm that yes, this is ransomware running. And so once that ransomware is recognized as being running, then the stopping is at the very smallest level, simply stopping the process that's running that ransomware. So with ransomware, it has to have something that's running it. It's making a move from actually being malicious files to being those live off the land fileless attacks. And so whatever that process is that's running it, let's automatically kill that and then start adding on additional. So that stops it immediately. That's that automated piece, stops it in less than a second. So as you can imagine with ransomware, it is encrypting and or exfiltrating files at a blazing speed. And so to be able to stop it in less than a second, you're minimizing that damage. And then take other actions. So then you could also stop the NIC so that that station, that network interface card,
I was about to
all
say
the
there's another
MSPs,
acronym. Even I know what that one means.
Right. So stop that network card so that it can only communicate back to the security operations center so that it can't even then communicate with the attacker, and then can go to shut down the station, notify the MSP about what the incident is, and really that those first 3 steps, automatically stopping the process, isolating that offending machine, and stopping that attack as it's occurring, and then alerting the MSP as to what's happening. Because if you don't go to that that 4th step of alerting, and you don't take the automated actions first, it's way too late.
I mean, that's an interesting point, because when you talk about alerting to me, it's maybe raising a ticket in the PSA. How long does it take between the ticket being raised and an engineer first getting eyes on it? There's a lot of potential for human delays there that presumably can cause quite a lot of damage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's really why we developed CryptoStopper, was because we've been using Carbon Black as an EDR solution since 2014. And what we were finding is that, we were getting alerts on potentially malicious behavior, but there was no automation around it. And so you get an alert, it goes into the ticketing system, the tech responds to it. I mean, best case scenario, you're 15 minutes, and more likely,
yeah.
I could see the eye roll. 15 minutes, yeah, right.
If every single one of my tickets was responded to and resolved within 15 minutes, that would be an incredible year.
Right. So plug in your own number of minutes or hours
two
as
hours
to when
human delay.
Yeah. And it's over. I mean, it's too late at that point. And the ransomware attackers specifically, they started building in time bombs so that these events would trigger at 6:15 on Friday afternoon. Then what's your response time to that alert?
Probably 48 hours.
Right. And so there has to be, so that automation has to be added. And like I say, I mean, that's just now coming into the picture from the standpoint of having tools out there that will automatically respond to these attacks. And the problem, and I'm sure many MSPs out there are going, what about false positives? You're going to shut all my users down and nobody's going to be able to work. And that is a valid concern, and something that at CryptoStopper that we've worked for the past 2 years at ensuring that there's not too many false positives to make it unusable, right? I mean, you have to have your users be able to function and not have too many false positives. And so now with XDR, that's what's being worked on now, is ensuring that we're not isolating all of these machines and shutting people down unnecessarily.
In terms of competition here, I mean, even Data RMM, for example, had introduced a ransomware detection module of some sort shortly before I completely exited the MSP side of the channel and moved over to the vendor dark side.
Yep.
You know, if you're using, if an MSP is using data RMM or one of the RMMs that has ransomware detection built in, what does CryptoStopper bring to the table that those don't already handle?
So that automated response, that really, so the use of the Canary Files and that, I would say, expertise of the system of making it actually work and making it actually be able to stop ransomware that's in effect. And without that pinpoint kind of narrow focus on, let's focus on just stopping ransomware because it's the biggest problem that faces MSPs right now in terms of attacks happening. So let's pinpoint and be able to stop every attack that's happening with precision. That's the difference in what CryptoStopper does compared to other tools and products that are out there. And actually, my background is in offsite backup and disaster recovery. I actually started an offsite backup and disaster recovery company out of my MSP years and years ago. It was a cloud-based backup, which today
Access backup.
Access backup, right. Prior to the cloud being the cloud, building that, I mean, that is the way to do backup and has been the way to do backup since I started that in actually started doing it in 2002 with tapes. If you remember the tapes, it wasn't exactly cloud then, but then in 2007 transitioned it to an actual cloud backup solution, split it off as its own company and built that out. And so traditionally, backup has been looked at as the damage control against ransomware. Let's make sure we have a good backup.
Yep.
Well, you're days into an event. I mean, even with Access Backup, where we would be able to bring systems back online within 2 hours, you're still, I mean, at a minimum, you're a day of disruption to that company just from a ransomware attack. And that's, to me, unacceptable.
Yeah. I think, again, might be having a bit of an over enthusiastic, but at the same time, stupid thought. But is there scope to extend the automated response bit by linking your XDR solution with your backup and disaster recovery solution so that you can actually start to automatically and quickly restore the files that were impacted before the XDR shut things off?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's in our roadmap of being able to do, and functionality that we feel has to be there in the near future.
I mean, that would be really cool. I'm envisaging it from the MSP technician side. First of all, an alert comes into the PSA to say CryptoStopper's stopped something. And then before the tech even gets eyes onto that ticket, a note's already been added to the ticket saying, hey, the Datto BCDR backup has already been restored onto the device that was impacted. You don't even need to look at this ticket anymore. We'll just close it and move on.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's where we need to get, and that's where we can get through automation. And you continue to extend that out to XDR and being able to recognize and stop attacks and remediate them automatically, and so that the techs are getting tickets and can evaluate, oh, yep, it did everything that it should have. But we're a little ways out from that.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any plans within CryptoStopper to start doing the backup, the BCDR part of it as part of the overall stack so that you can control more of the detection, the response, and the recovery all in one?
Yeah, so we can actually do that within the Windows environment, just leveraging the VSS. I don't even know what that acronym stands for. So
something to volume shadow copy.
Yeah, but it's not VSS.
It's a VSS writer, but I don't know what the second S is. Something to do with volume shadow.
Yeah. So the problem with VSS is that you first have to protect it. And so once it's then protected, because the attackers, one of the first things they do is go and shut down BSS, and delete all the BSS copies.
Volume shadow store, I think.
There you
that second S
go.
is for the store. You can almost hear the back of my mind clicking and whirring while we're having this conversation.
Yeah, so really leveraging BSS is the way to do that.
Yeah, makes sense. I think it would be interesting to, obviously you're quite heavily involved with the MSP community. You still run an MSP. I remember actually when we were having our prep call before this show, you had some really interesting things to say about the way you'd grown the MSP to a certain size, but then been able to introduce some streamlining to the systems and processes and cut down the number of employees. Can you perhaps give us some tips around the things that MSP owners who maybe they've hit that 5 to 10 employee point and they're starting to think, do I need all of these people?
Yeah. Well, and I'm not advocating for firing people. I don't want people to think that, but streamlining, absolutely. And really it comes back to that original discussion we were having around tool sets. So having the right tools in place to be able to manage security, because if you can get that under control and you're not just being responsive and dealing with attacks that are coming through and dealing with the problems of running an MSP, which I'm sure you lived firsthand, right? So getting out of that reactive mode into a much more proactive mode, and that's all done through the right tools and then training the staff on properly utilizing those tools.
MSPs talk a lot about stack. Every time I log on to any of the social things, it's what's in your stack, what's the best stack. I'm starting a new MSP. What should I have in my stack? If you look at that stack of all of the various tools, the security tools, the BCDR tools, the monitoring tools, all of it, where do you think the easiest low-hanging fruit is to start driving towards the streamlining and automation that you just talked about?
Yeah, so really CryptoStopper and an XDR solution. So if you can if you can eliminate ransomware and have an XDR solution that has a built-in security operations center behind it at a reasonable cost. So you've got to have the traditional. So you got to have AV, you've got to have your RMM tool. But then the biggest problems that we have right now, again, ransomware and just cyber attacks in general. CryptoStopper takes care of the ransomware, XDR takes care of the rest of the cybersecurity problems. So getting those tools in place that eliminate those two things is going to make the MSP so much more efficient and really makes that transition that doesn't fully get you to the MSSP model, but at least takes care of the endpoint and the network. There's still governance and all of the components that go around that, but you've at least got the endpoint taken care of with CryptoStopper and a good XDR.
Yeah, makes sense. So this podcast is sponsored by Zementum, which is a sales and revenue platform. I've asked this question to all of my guests so far, and I've had some really enlightening answers. I'm actually going to ask it to you from two angles, because you own both an MSP and a vendor. So the question is, can you tell me about one of your most memorable sales? But I want to hear from both sides of it, both as the vendor and as the MSP, so that we can really teach some great sales tips.
Yeah. So one of the most memorable sales. This was early on.
Is a good start to any story.
This was early on in my career, and maybe not, from an automation standpoint, isn't a great story, and from a Zementum kind of tool set isn't a great story, because it was just in my luck and expertise at that time. But went into an insurance agency, 130 users or so, and multiple times per week at about 3 p.m. their entire network would have to be shut down and server rebooted. And the existing MSP that was working on it just gave them procedures for how to get everybody off the network and reboot the servers, and then they get back in. And as you can imagine, 130 employees, like, okay, just everybody shut down at 3 o'clock or randomly sometime in the afternoon. And I immediately knew, so they used a particular insurance software management system, and had dealt with that problem probably 100 times before in a previous job that I had. And so it was a matter of changing one setting on the server that would keep the server from running. There was a memory leak that was caused by a specific issue, and server would essentially run out of memory and then lock up. Change this one registry setting, goes away. And I mean, that was an instant sale and the most memorable sale. And I think the thing that's important about that is, not everyone's going to have that specific expertise, but what is your expertise? What's that one thing that you can go into the next client and say, I can solve this for you? And that is super easy right now with cybersecurity. So you walk in with the right tool set and the right configuration of how you're selling that and solving cybersecurity, and it's going to win you the sale.
So it's a really simple one. It's just playing to your strengths. And yeah, I mean, when you were telling the story, I was thinking, I'm not sure this is a great sales tip, because basically what Greg's telling us here is you need to be really, really expert in everything and have loads of experience to be able to sell, So I'm glad you brought that round to a tangible tip, which is, play to your strengths, know what you are really good at, and focus on that for solution sales.
Absolutely. And like I say, I mean, that I just lucked into that one and didn't even realize that I was selling. I mean, I was 24 years old when I started my MSP, and no idea how to be a business owner or a salesperson. Just did what I did. But that has always stuck with me, of once I realized how that happened and having that unique expertise, and then how do you pinpoint that in your sales? And today, again, that's super easy with cybersecurity. And every CEO out there is now finally, I've been screaming this for 10 years, but is finally concerned about cybersecurity. And so if you can solve that, you're gonna win sales.
And what about from the vendor perspective? Because I think a lot of MSPs, it's easy to see the vendors as being quite pushy when it comes to sales. And I certainly, as an MSP, thought the vendors must have all the tricks, because pretty much every time I ended up getting off a call with a vendor salesperson, I'd leave with some kind of solution I didn't want, need, or ask for. But for some reason, it seemed like a great idea at the time. It was like the next PPI scandal or something. But what would you say most memorable sale from that vendor perspective was?
So for that, I mean, I don't know that I have a specific one, because when people see our demo, so it's really that CryptoStopper demo, and when you see a live ransomware attack being initiated and starting to run, and you see CryptoStopper automatically stop it, like that to me is, there's really no spin that we can put on that, and no like real sales that go along with that. Is just seeing it in action. And so again, I think it's that precision of solving an exact problem and being able to show and demonstrate that's why we win sales with CryptoStopper.
So we bring those two together, really. It's playing to your strengths, and being able to demonstrate the precision and the exact solution to the problem.
Yeah. And these are, I mean, there's we're not uncovering anything exceptionally unique. It's just, it is what sales is all about, is playing to your strengths and being able to prove it.
Yeah, you say that, but I like having this conversation because I think most, I'd say with a pinch of salt perhaps, but I think most MSP owners are techies themselves. Most
Right.
MSPs that I've spoken to are tech-led businesses. Now, as an engineer myself, if you tell me to go out and do sales, absolutely fills me with terror. Working at Zementum, when if they said to me, Ben, we want you to do a sales role, you need to go out and sell, I'd be out the door quicker, before the pen even hit the floor. But actually, the reality is that by knowing the product intimately, having a belief in the problem, an understanding of the pain behind the problem of trying to sell IT services to small businesses, like, I get how difficult that is. So actually, it makes it all very relatable when talking to the MSPs. And I probably end up selling a lot without realizing I'm actually selling it. And I think if you can stop thinking about sales as sales, and I think really go into sales conversations believing you're going there to solve their problem, I think it can really help with the overall, the classic engineer who hates talking to people. If you change that mindset around what sales means, I think it can make it much easier.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you're not going to, like, and you're right that most MSPs are owned by very technical people that, dread sales. So take the word sales out of it and you're solving a problem. I mean, that's what we all want to do, is solve problems, right? So most small businesses, their biggest problem today is cybersecurity and efficiency with technology. Solve that, and don't sell, just go show them how you're going to solve that for them.
Yeah. Last question, Greg. What's exciting you the most about the future for the MSP industry?
So it's all of the things that we've talked about today. I mean, cybersecurity, we have to get under control. And to me, that is very exciting, of MSPs being able to solve the problem of cybersecurity for businesses. And really, when we start adding that automated response to everything beyond, we've already done the ransomware piece, so what's next? And solving the cybersecurity problem in an automated way with the right tools, that's very exciting to me.
Completely agree. And I think it leads to a much more profitable future. The more, at the end of the day, people are the most expensive part of our business. So
Absolutely.
The more of it we can automate, and it brings it back to that streamlining of processes, streamlining of people. We're not advocating for firing everyone, but ideally you want to be able to fire everyone.
Right.
Greg, if people want to find you afterwards, where's the best place to connect with you?
Yep. So LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn, Greg Edwards, CryptoStopper, or getcryptostopper.com.
Brilliant.
Or sign up for Zomentum, and we're an integrated partner within Zomentum.
Yeah, you can buy CryptoStopper through Zementum. I think you've got a blog as well. Is that right?
Right. So getcryptostopper.com/blog.
And what kind of things do you talk about on the blog?
So, I mean, everything cybersecurity. I think the latest article that we're working on is how Russia is now functioning as with their, I mean, they've always been the largest purveyor of ransomware, and now that's just being stepped up with the current situation happening. So that's it's all related to cybersecurity.
So a great resource for going to learn about the upcoming trends in cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for joining me today, Greg. I've really enjoyed the conversation. If you've learned anything today or enjoyed listening, please do share the podcast. And thank you very much. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you want to get more from today's show, check out the show notes and share this episode with a friend. earn, grow, and manage revenue quickly and cost-effectively in the Zomentum Revenue Platform. To learn more, check out zomentum.com. See you in the next episode.